versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful Monday. We're live here on WYSL, which means that you, the listener, can give us a call if you'd like. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000 if you'd like to participate in the show. Or, of course, you can leave your comments online because we're streaming on the Kevin Wilson Facebook page, the Kevin Wilson Twitter account, the Free Solution Facebook page, and the Free Solution YouTube channel. Any one of those, just look up A Free Solution. You should be able to find those pretty easily. Or again, give us a call, 585-346-3000 if you're listening here on WYSL until 2 p.m. Got a few things to talk about today. We're going to talk about a new thing that came out, the Biden administration invoking the Defense Production Act once again, twice within the last few months, this time to address green energy. And we'll also talk about some more New York State legislation that came through recently as well. There was over 1,000 bills that New York State passed in this legislative session. That's a lot of stuff. Most of it's innocuous stuff, but it's a lot of stuff to be able to sort through. So we're still finding a handful of new things to be able to talk about, like stuff that didn't even get much attention on the news. The gun control stuff, we spent a lot of time on that, but there's a handful of other bills too. Some of which aren't bad, some of which are actually good things, I think, and some of which are not so great. Just other ways to be able to control and regulate our actions. And so we're going to talk about some of that stuff. If there's something that I don't talk about, there's something that I missed, a bill that got passed in both those houses that you want to talk about, again, give us a call, 585-346-3000, and we will chat about it. Or if you're listening online, post those links in the comments. If you got the bill number in the description, even better. Makes things much easier so we can talk about it on a level playing field. All right, but first I want to talk about the Biden administration's use of the Defense Production Act. And, you know, I put in the description of this, you know, we're entering the command and control economy, but it is a way that the modern presidents, because this isn't exclusive to Biden, this is something Trump did, something Obama did. Modern presidents try to seize control of the moment to push their agenda forward. It takes too long, they say, to get through Congress, or they get too impatient, or this is the only way to do it. The only way to make their agenda happen is through executive order. So the Biden administration is doing that once again with solar panels. And half of what he did, actually, I like half of what he did. I will give him some credit for. The other half, not so much. So he did two things in relation to trying to increase the number of solar panels available in the United States. There's more pressure on this with rising prices for natural gas and oil that are related to energy production. Okay, you know, that's understandable. That's a result in part from the crisis in Russia, but also a result of U.S. policy that tries to reduce U.S. reliance. This is the positive spin, reduce U.S. reliance on natural gas and oil consumption. Or if you want to go to the other side of that, that makes it harder for domestic U.S. gas and oil production to happen by restricting the number of available wells is the accusation against them. But either way, the solar panel thing is a result of that, is coming out from the Biden administration trying to shift people, for better or worse, to a politically acceptable source of green energy, because we don't want to touch nuclear energy, of course, but solar panels, wind, that's what the shift is towards. And so the first part of this, though, is he lifted tariffs on importing the solar panels from certain countries, right? So from countries like Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, now those can come in tariff free. I think that's actually a great thing, mostly because I don't like tariffs at all. I think that they are just a way to limit us as consumers, our ability to be able to go get goods and services that we need. And if I want to be able to buy solar panels from overseas, I should be able to do that. And I think it's corrupt to rig the economy in a way that ends up specifically benefiting well-connected American manufacturers. That's cronyism. That's cronyism in a nutshell, and that ends up with goods being more expensive for us, allowing less access for everyday consumers to be able to get that product on our house, on our land, whatever. Because again, I have nothing inherently against solar panels. I think it's good, and especially if you want to develop off the grid living, if that's your thing, solar panels can be great. I think you should be able to buy them from wherever, and this expands the opportunity to do that, creates more opportunities for at least folks from those countries to be able to send solar panels over here, and removes the tax that we would have to pay on those goods, because all tariff is a tax on us. It doesn't really prevent, it doesn't really cost those manufacturers overseas anything. It costs us money, and it makes it harder for those companies to justify shipping stuff over here because of tariffs, because it ends up becoming too artificially expensive because of U.S. policy. I think we should eliminate more tariffs. We should have more free trade everywhere as much as possible. The other side of this, though, is that the Biden administration is using the Defense Production Act to take a more active role in the solar industry. He's also done this recently with the formula shortage. And again, this is something that the market, absent restrictions, could do, because there are restrictions on suppliers for solar panels as well. It's harder to get stuff from overseas. There are restrictions, some understandable and some not, on solar panel production and the environmental regulations around those. In removing those barriers to allow American companies to succeed is far better than the U.S. government coming in, micromanaging these groups, or directing money their way, because the Defense Production Act in theory is supposed to be something that is used in emergency situations and or situations where the defense of the country is on the line, right? Like, so we have a significant situation in which the government needs to seize manufacturing assets in order to use those for like a war effort, right? Like that was the original idea behind this, which I can still have my own issues with that generally, but it's been used recently, the last few years, as just a way of like, well, we can't force these companies to do immediately what we want, so we're going to just use the government to command them to do what we want and how we want it, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense in that moment. And so again, the Trump administration did this during the COVID pandemic. They wanted more ventilators. They said it was essential to national defense. They used the Defense Production Act on that. And then used it, and then the Biden administration used it for a few things. I guess they had used it. I didn't realize this one. They'd used it to supplement the supply of fire hoses in response to wildfires that are happening last year. I didn't even realize that one had happened. And then the baby shortage formula thing. And what worries about me about this is that there are ways that the market can respond to these things. There are ways that we can do things, but people, again, politicians particularly, and the voters who support them, see it as the only mechanism for solving problems is through the state. Even though there are companies who could this, there are markets available to solve these types of issues. And those markets are often limited by government policy. People start to see, well, the only way this will get done is if the state seizes control of this. People said that about the vaccine stuff too. When I was running for Congress, Congressman Morales said, well, we need to use the Defense Production Act on vaccines. But again, what if they got the gamble wrong? What if they concentrated far too much into a single supplier of vaccines or a handful? It could have gone very wrong. When you have the robustness and duplicity of the market, when you have more options and many people working on different things, it's not a disadvantage. People think, oh, we need one central coordinated authority to solve these problems. No, that central coordinated authority doesn't necessarily have all the information. They don't necessarily have the best interests of the nation at heart. You can argue about that, but they don't necessarily have that. And they don't have the capacity to be able to anticipate some of the problems that can happen in the market and then have that it's not duplicity sounds like a negative word, but the resilience of an entire industry working on a problem as compared to a handful of concentrated companies. That's the danger of this happening. That's the danger of what happened with with the formula shortage, and we're doubling down on that problem by using the Defense Production Act here, by by instead of removing the barriers that created this in the process, that removing the barriers that made it so there is a concentration of industry where there's a single point of failure, we're doubling down on, well, the state is the only one who can fix this. That creates more fragility in our system, because if we have that single point of failure for a market, again, solar panels, I'm not against them. I don't think it's the only energy solution we should or ought to pursue, but I'm not against them. We're going to create more problems. Again, I like they're removing the tariff thing. I don't like the Defense Production Act thing, and we're going to continue to see more and more of it. The Trump administration started doing that. The Biden administration is going to do it more, and you can bet whoever the next president is, Republican or Democrat, as soon as there's a problem with a particular industry, they're going to jump in and save the day. Use the Defense Production Act, and we will jump in and save the day. Be our heroes, and just vote for them and make sure you keep giving them more money. All right. Thanks again for joining us here on Free Solution. Appreciate y'all indulging me on the Defense Production Act rant that I've gone on for this first segment. But keep listening. We're going to talk about those 1,000 bills that New York State has passed. We'll try to hit a few more of those. We've been doing this the last couple of weeks. Again, give us a call if you want to participate in the show, 585-346-3000. We'll be back on a Free Solution in just a few minutes.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Oh, those injury attorney ads.
Hurt on your couch? Call 555-OUCH.
It's kind of cute watching that injury attorney buying breakfast for a crash test dummy, but while fun is fun, there's nothing amusing about getting your life back together after a personal injury or a motorcycle accident, or when you need defense for a DWI charge. Christopher Johnson takes your case seriously, and you'll feel like you're his only client because when you meet with him, your case gets 100% of his attention. So instead of cute singing jingles and magic phone numbers,
Fall out of a tree? Call 33333.
write this number down and keep it with you. 585-415-3803. 415-3803. After all, Christopher Johnson knows you're no dummy. Get individual attention and integrity, experience, and expertise. Put the power of one on your legal team. 415-3803. Stay safe, be healthy, drive sober. Christopher Johnson Attorney, personal injury, car or motorcycle accidents, DWI Defense.
WYSL now conducts a test of the emergency alert system. This is only a test.
Western New York Sealing and Paving, installing new driveways and parking lots. Seal coating too. Want a fresh new driveway or parking lot installed? Call 247-8466. For a limited time, get 0% financing for 18 months for qualified buyers. Serving Monroe, Livingston, and Ontario counties. WNYPave.com. Seal coating, paving, plus concrete sidewalks and patios. Call 247-8466 or visit WNYPave.com. Western New York Sealing and Paving. Make your asphalt great again.
A free solution.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again for joining us again here live on WISL until 2 p.m. Give us a call, 585-346-3000, or leave your comments wherever we're streaming online, the Free Solution pages or the Kevin Wilson pages. Got one comment from Brian on Facebook. He says, what does manufacturing baby formula have to do with the defense of our country? I mean, the straight answer is really not much. I'm sure that there's an explanation other than the fact that they use military aircraft to import formula to the United States from overseas. And that's it, really. Again, it's not necessary for this. All they had to do, we didn't need to use military aircraft. We didn't need to invoke the Defense Production Act to force, manufacturers of certain milk-based products to sell first to baby formula companies, because that was never actually the problem to begin with. The problem was the one Abbott factory getting shut down and the investigation getting prolonged, I think, for a while, because there's an accusation of a contamination coming from their formula, which wasn't necessarily proven, but the investigation continued to go on while supply shortages continued to get aggravated. Again, these are problems caused in part not just by that manufacturing company, but U.S. policy that doesn't allow for the import of formula, and U.S. policy that makes it a lot easier for the concentration of that industry to be in a handful of places. And that's both on the regulatory side and on the buying side, since state governments through programs like WIC would only contract with a handful of places, and they'd kind of get not quite a monopoly on the market, because there's a couple players in there, but heavy control of the market. So it makes it harder for independent manufacturers to break in, meet those requirements, and then you can't get the overseas manufacturers to be able to import stuff. So it didn't need to be done. The looseness of like defending the country and using this act is just, well, it's whatever we need it for whatever emergency that we choose. So great question, Brian. Appreciate it. Again, leave your comment online or give us a call, 585-346-3000. And so I'm going to move to New York State policy, which, I do want to throw again, in addition to the 1,000 bills that got passed in New York State, Governor Kathy Hochul has also used messages of necessity far more often, other than Governor Cuomo used a little bit more. In 2014, he used 17. She used 16 messages of necessity, meaning that instead of having to wait 3 days to between the first or a few days before reading the bill and being able to actually vote on it, you're able to accelerate that process. So she's using that more. And again, that's a continued expansion of executive power. And in something that is fundamentally undemocratic. In most cases, these aren't necessary to do. It's just that they want to take advantage of the political momentum that they have oftentimes and do that. So I get why that exists in the first place, but I don't think that is the intended use there. It's more if you need to appropriate funds for an emergency situation. That's what it's supposed to be used for, but it got used for things like the SAFE Act, which is just, it was to again limit the scrutiny available to that bill so that I could get through quicker without its proponents getting as much feedback from the pro self-defense community. And again, that's how it's unfortunately been used a number of other times as well. And follow-up comment from Brian on Facebook too says his point was that wasn't the intent of the Defense Production Act. Again, Brian, I agree with talking about the baby formula shortage. No, that's not what it was meant to be used for, and we're going to continue to see more expansive uses of the Defense Production Act. I would count on it from Democrats and Republicans. Doesn't matter who ends up winning in a couple of years. I think it's going to be something we're going to see more of, because we have a political culture in which politicians are expected to do something, and you can't just sit back and like, hey, this industry is already well positioned to address this issue, and we can remove X, Y, and Z barriers to facilitate that. No, that doesn't give them enough. That doesn't give the politicians enough credit. They have to be seen doing something. So the Defense Production Act, it looks proactive. It is quick. They're able to do something immediately. Sitting back and removing barriers looks less exciting. Again, why we're seeing that with the solar panel thing. Again, to Biden's credit, he is removing some barriers in that case. But I'm going to continue criticizing him for using the Defense Production Act in other ways that I think are wholly inappropriate for the intent of this, and also wholly inappropriate for a democratic republic that nominally supports some concept of free market that has given our country success. Concentrating that power in a command and control style economy in the executive branch, incredibly dangerous. And we've seen what sort of destruction that's wrought in socialist and communist countries who were overly reliant on those committees to be able to define production. We could be heading in that direction if people keep voting for politicians who want to look like they're doing something, like Joe Biden. He's one of the worst. I don't think his political instincts are wrong. I think he knows what he's doing. People want it. We just need to convince everyone else in this country that that's a bad idea. It's a terrible idea for being able to actually have a prosperous society. Anyway, so let's continue to talk about New York State stuff, though. The all the bills there. Then there's an electronics bill that I want to talk about. There's a cannabis bill that I want to talk about. And I also want to talk about this story I came across briefly this morning too, where the checks that we get every year if you're a homeowner, the property tax rebate stuff, like the STAR checks, they're going to go out early this year, just before the primary. Funny how that happens. Now, I can't imagine that Kathy Hochul's actually all that worried about losing her primary, but it just feels so gross to me that the timing of when this sort of stuff happens, like, okay, so we're going to send this money to the state and they're going to do what they're going to do with it. And they're going to send some of that back. And then it kind of feels like you're getting money, right? Like you're not, but you're getting some of your own money back. Because again, collected by, the local governments sent up to the state, etc. You're getting your own money back. The state isn't doing you any favor here. Not really. And to do that near elections, which is something that politicians do all the time, again, not exclusive to Kathy Hochul. I felt a little bit like that with what Donald Trump was doing with the stimulus check, just a tiny bit. Just so it was the like, hey, you're getting money from me. No, it's not from me. You took that from us and then gave us some of it back. Just bribing us with our own money. It's like taking the wallet out of our own pocket and then handing us a $20 we had in their back. Then we're supposed to thank them for it with their votes. No, that feels gross to me. So watch it. Not that no one listening on this, I'm sure no one listening on this station is going to get fooled by that stuff. You guys know. Just point it out to your friends who are grateful for that. So like, oh goodness, can you believe the government sent me this money? No, they took it from you in the first place. They stole it from us. They're not doing you a favor unless you didn't pay nothing in. Then in that case, maybe I guess you're getting money. You're getting my money, your money. But besides that, gosh, just don't figure out what it is. Figure out what's really happening here. But anyway, back to the actual bill parts, right? So one of the ones I actually like, I'm still going to be finding out what the heck got passed. Most of it is, renaming buildings, roads, that sort of stuff, right? Like it's a lot of that stuff, that 1,007 bills that ended up getting passed this legislative session, with possibly more on the way. But one of the ones that I liked was the right to repair bill. I think that's a cool one. It requires for certain electronics products for repair shops and individuals to be able to access diagnostic and repair information. So you're able to actually repair that stuff, because a lot of what manufacturers do is they'll make it hard for people to actually see what's going on, see that diagnostic information, unless you take it back to the original manufacturer. And then they end up getting a monopoly on that repair process. So they end up having like kind of a gated thing, and you can't have independent repair shops or independent ways of being able to modify a piece of property that you own. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. I think that's a cool thing, and I like the direction that's going. I'll give a few good spots in New York State. But then we're going to talk about some other stuff too, maybe not so great. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Celebrating 35 years. AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's your News 10 NBC forecast on WYSL. For tonight, mostly cloudy with a chance for an isolated shower, otherwise a touch muggy with a low of 62. Going into Tuesday, a cold front will swing through, bring us a chance for scattered showers and occasional rain at times. Could be heavy as well. High of 72. Going to turn comfortable as we head into Tuesday night. Looks like those showers will exit as well. Low temperature of 53 with partly cloudy skies late. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Alex Bielfeld on your WYSL stations.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations. Here's a special message for veterans and surviving spouses from Alpine Manor. You may qualify for a special benefit from the VA after applying for funds received for aid and attendance. Your stay at Alpine Manor could be as low as $600 per month. Be sure to call for details. At Alpine Manor, their pride is personalized care for seniors who are not yet ready for a nursing home. There are supervised activities and medications, full laundry and housekeeping services, 3 dietary-approved home-cooked meals, and a bedtime snack, all provided in immaculate surroundings. Be sure to call for details on this new program for the veteran in your family. Keep the golden years carefree years at Alpine Manor, nestled in the picturesque rolling hills east of 390 in Livingston County, just 20 minutes from Rochester. New York State Health Department license. Call 346-5880. That's 346-5880 for a no-obligation tour or information, or visit alpinemanor.com.
Shorter commitment, bigger return. Advantage wants to offer you more for less right now with our new 23-month certificate of deposit. You'll earn 1.25% APY on your money with only a 23-month deposit, or earn up to 1.75 with a 47-month commitment. Either way, you know your money is growing. It's smart and it's a sure thing. Now you see why Advantage is banking made simple. Go to AdvantageFCU.org for details. Limited time offer. Membership subject to eligibility. Federally insured by NCUA. $500 minimum opening deposit required.
Bagpipes, Highland games, Irish dancing, traditional foods, all at Genesee Country Village and Museum. Explore the rich culture of pan-Celtic traditions at the Celtic Fair on Saturday, June 11th and Sunday, June 12th. Enjoy heritage music, dance, and authentic food and drink. Shop specialty vendors and watch artisan demos. Buy tickets in advance online and save. Don't miss the Celtic Fair on June 11th and 12th. GCV.org.
Next to life itself, time is God's greatest gift. Every minute of your child's precious school years should be spent in devotion to truth, not some agenda. An Archangel School K-12 classic Catholic-based education fosters achievement, not conformity. Affordable, safe, small class sizes, and zero time wasted on CRT or Common Core. Your family values are honored, and parental involvement is warmly welcomed. Archangel School kids learn to soar, not march. 247-1112.
A free solution on the WYSL stations.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again for joining us on this wonderful Monday afternoon. We're live until 2 p.m. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show. 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Or leave your comment online on the Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, or the Kevin Wilson pages, Twitter account, etc. And the podcast, too. You can, you're listed out later. You can leave us a message from the podcast, though, or drop us some support there as well. If you like listening to the show, you can always drop us some support there too. You can help keep this show going, and leave us a message too. All right, so we're talking about some New York State bills. So the one I started talking about before the break, though, was the right to repair bill. I think it's a great thing. Again, part of me is just like that the idea of like, if I buy something, I should be able to kind of own that. I get that there's proprietary technology. But I should be able to fix things if I want to. And then furthering that direction is a good thing. You should be able to, it creates more opportunities for independent businesses to be able to explore and repair products. And then you don't have that monopoly where you can end up with, I think, consumer abuse if you have to go through the original manufacturer for everything. Now, I get the manufacturers want to, either certify their repair folks or void the warranty if you have certain repair folks. But again, if it's my stuff, I should be able to do with it what I want. This is a thing. It's there's so many things that end up falling under this camp. Again, this expands some consumer electronic stuff, but also it does not include medical devices, home appliances, agricultural equipment, which is a big thing. There's maybe I'll have to do a show with Tim on this one, but there's people who want to be able to just like fix their tractor, but like if they mess with anything on the computer, can destroy or void the warranty on their equipment. So there's a bunch of stuff that isn't included in this, but this is a step in the right direction. So I'm happy to see that. All right, so let's go with one of the other bills that I'm less happy about, which is that the state is cracking down on illegal cannabis sales. Now you think, okay, well, aren't they legalizing that? Or isn't it now possible to go and sell? No, you'll remember, you can only sell things with the state's permission. If you were an individual entrepreneur who was, maybe selling some cannabis products on the side and you weren't collecting taxes for the state, you don't have permission to do that. Now, some, I guess, outlets were doing this thing where they might give you marijuana in exchange for something that wasn't money, right? It could be membership, it could be, t-shirts, stuff like that. The state's cracking down on that stuff. Again, people had found creative ways of getting around being able to sell these products if they wanted to, not so much without state permission, but while they continued to wait for the bureaucratic process to grind forward to get the state's approval for this stuff. The state is unhappy that they're not getting that cut of that. Again, that's all this is. The state is, they want their cut of the money. And if you are excluding them from that, they're going to come down on you. You could say that with anything, even legal products. Again, as cannabis becomes legal, alcohol products, that's a big thing. The ATF stands for alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. What do you think they do? They go after alcohol still. It's still a big black market business where people make alcohol that's not approved by the government and they sell it tax-free, and the government wants their cut. I'll get this other comment from Brian on Facebook too. Great comments there. Brian says, a license from the government takes a right from you and then sells it back to you. Oh man, that's exactly it. That's what it is. You might have some inherent right to do something, but the government is saying, no, you can't do this now unless you buy that right back from me. Usually, most of the time, there's not even a pretext of like safety or quality control. Like every once in a while, that's the reason for like a license existing, right? You could make an argument that driving's like that, but a lot of this stuff, a lot of the business license stuff, does two things. One is, again, to sell that right back to you. It's a revenue generation source, and two, it's to be able to threaten you if you ever get out of line. I mean, I've talked about this like a while ago back. I think I haven't talked about it since the Radio Free New York days, how the expansion of business licenses in Rochester was to do exactly that, is that you operate at us, the government's discretion. And if you step out of line, if you create problems, we will take away that right to operate. That's the whole reason that it exists. Is we can just say, well, we don't like you anymore. You're breaking the rules, whatever. Doesn't matter. We're taking away your business license. It's just a means of being able to control businesses. So libertarians kind of knew this was going to happen, right? Like for kind of there's folks who even said, well, we don't want to legalize. Maybe we want to decriminalize this stuff because then it's just, well, people are able to do their own thing, and they're not going to be facing punishment from the state for selling this product, but then they don't have to go and buy that right to sell that product from the state. They don't have to pay their taxes. They don't have to. I mean, you still always have to pay your taxes. But fun fact, even if you're doing illegal activity, you're still supposed to pay your taxes. Like section in the in tax filings that you do, you can claim illegal income and pay your taxes on that income from illicit activities. So you'd still have to pay your taxes technically, but the state wants to collect their sales taxes and other fees. They're proposing that on the local level too, where they want to add additional fees to do whatever with. And again, you have to jump through all these hoops. Some places are going to be limiting the number of licenses for sale available. And the worry is the thing that we're going to have to watch for, because it seems to always happen in this case. I think you could make a good argument in at least some places that the medical marijuana industry ended up going this way. The competition ended up being limited to folks who are politically connected. So I was thinking, when you limit the number of sellers that are available in any given market, and people come up with all sorts of reasons for this. They're like, well, we don't need it. Or what if the market's flooded? Or what if we let in bad actors? Blah, blah, blah. It's just a way of being able to sell that license at a premium, to sell it to people who are politically connected or beneficial to you in some way. That's every time I see that's really the excuse. Every time the government says, no, we have to limit competition for this and limit the number of licenses for this. That's all it is. It's a way to be able to limit and sell access to something that they can give out. Get another comment. Brian says, they use the threat of taking your business license to enforce the COVID-19 mandates. Yeah, that's part of it. Again, that's exactly what it is. It's about forcing compliance. That's the goal. That's often the purpose of business licenses. It's not about consumer safety. It's about having a way to punish and destroy a business when they get out of line. For better or worse, again, whether you agreed with those mandates or not, that's what it's for. So as soon as your city, your county, your state, whatever, agrees to licenses for anything, just know that that's what you're signing up for. That the next regime that's in, the next a group of people who takes over the government can then use that as a stick to keep people in line, whatever it is. It could be for good purposes, could be for bad purposes. You don't know. So I always tell folks, don't give the state power that you wouldn't want to have your worst enemy to have, because you're not always going to be in control of that thing. You're not always going to be the one to set the limitation, the boundaries, or the use of that power. We see that with the Defense Production Act, we talked about earlier. Just because it was intended to be able to take manufacturing assets in specific wartime emergencies to provide supplies for a defense effort does not mean that that's how it's always going to be used. So we have this power in place that then people like the Biden administration can use to just look good politically, while also failing to solve the fundamental issues that they're looking to solve. So again, I'd love to hear from other folks too. Again, if there's other bills, there's so many to talk about, right? I think I talked about the body armor bill, or the new body armor law, on our Thursday show that is just online only, but we'll talk about that too. But if you guys have any other bills that got passed, stuff that's fallen under the radar a little bit, and we talked about a lot of the gun control bills on the show. Now we've talked about this cannabis bill. We've talked about the digital right to repair bill. I want to talk about a broadband bill next as well. If there's anything else that I'm missing here, give us a call, 585-346-3000, 585-346-3000, or leave your comments online. Again, I want to be able to cover all this stuff because I always suspect, again, whenever I see such a large number of bills passed, 1,000 bills passed, I'm like, there is something hidden in there. There's something in there that we're going to find out about a little bit that the mainstream media isn't coming. But because, we're an independent show here on WYSL, we can talk about this stuff. We're not limited to what the mainstream media is talking about. We're able to dig through and figure out where the garbage is, where the bills that maybe flew under the radar, that do threaten our liberty, that do make things harder for businesses, that make it harder for us to have a free and thriving economy in New York State. It gets buried in this deluge of stuff. It gets buried in the big overarching conversations about issues like gun control, which is important. We do need to talk about that, but it means it's an opportunity for other stuff to slip under the radar, and we don't want to let that happen. So again, give us a call if you want to participate. You have any other bills that we should be talking about, that we ought to be talking about here on the Free Solution. 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000, or leave your comment online. And when we come back, again, I'll talk about the body armor bill, because I think I only talked about it on Thursday. We're going to talk about the this broadband bill that I think it's good, one of the few good things, and then we'll talk about a handful of other bills that are coming up too. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what else is out there. That's always my concern. And yeah, and then maybe after that we'll talk about a couple more national issues as well. All right, we'll be back in just a few minutes here on A Free Solution. Talk to you soon.
The WYSL store is now open. With nicer weather, your car needs an official Voice of Liberty bumper sticker. There's a great selection to help you show your love of God, the Constitution, and free and safe schools. Here are just a few available. Shut Up, Fauci, Kathy Hochul, Save America, Support the Second Amendment, Scam Alert, January 6th, God, Please Help Us, Close the Mexican Border, Save America, Stop Voting for Democrats. And there are gas pump stickers reading, Democrats did this. These are standard weather-resistant bumper stickers guaranteed to get you horn honks and thumbs up in traffic. Choose from other locally made WYSL Voice of Liberty merch too, like tees, hoodies, drinkware, and more. Perfect gifts for any Liberty lover. Check out the exclusive WYSL Mount Worstmore shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs depicting our 4 worst presidents. Guess who's front and center? Shop the WYSL store at WYSL1040.com.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
There's a place in the village of Avon you and your critters will love. Whether they're big or small, whether they've got hair, fur, or feathers, Avon Feed fits every need. There's a full selection of pet foods, bird feeders, and wild bird food, plus garden tools, quality grass seed, and a great selection of dry shod boots. Buy 10 bags of quality wild bird food, get the next bag free. Choose farm feeds and great equine products from Poland Grains. Find everything for your pet from feeding bowls to toys, leads, collars, beds, crates, and tie-outs. Avon Feed and Supply has with a big pet that chain stores will never have. Tim Cole and his great knowledgeable staff. Choose from premium local products like Firefly dairy, goat soaps, and lotions. While you're at Avon Feed, don't forget your two-legged pets with River at Thousand Island cheese and great flavors, including the new 12-year-old cheddar, plus Chef James bourbon meat sauce. Once again, nut butters and Nunday mustards. Open weekdays 9 to 6, Saturday 9 to 4. Avon Feed and Supply, West Main Street at the bottom of the hill, just west of the Circle.
A free solution on the WYSL stations.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, we're live here until 2 p.m. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We're talking about some of the other bills that happened in New York State. And, you know, if you're listening on the radio and you're wondering what cannabis bill I'm talking about, it is the bill number is S9452. That's the bill number if you want to look that up later. And again, it's just a crackdown on manufacturers that are getting a little bit out of line because the state wants their cuts of whatever transactions are taking place. It's just a way of going after folks who are stepping out of line and aren't paying the state what they're looking for. And again, I realized I talked about this bill on my Thursday show, and I never really got to it last week for the radio show, which is the body armor bill, which it absolutely kills me. And what it does is it makes it illegal for New York State residents to be able to buy body armor. Makes it illegal for people like you and me, unless you're in an approved profession, to do something that just protects you. Remember, body armor can't hurt anyone in and of itself. It doesn't even necessarily prevent you from, getting knocked over if you're hit with certain types of body armor too. It'll still knock the wind out of you. But there's a local senator, Sam Brook, who is part of this and voted. It was one of the original co-sponsors of this bill. So she's my senator, my New York State senator. So fortunately, she's not even just, again, I don't agree with, but I can at least kind of grok the arguments for gun control, because it is a weapon used to hurt people. Again, I don't agree with that, but I can at least get that. I can argue against that from a rational point of view. This one, though, again, the body armor doesn't shoot people with that. You don't hurt people with body armor. It is a defensive mechanism. And there are lots of folks who may have a need for body armor that the state isn't thinking of. Either they live in a dangerous place or they have a dangerous profession that's not on the approved list. Apparently, a lot of EMS workers aren't going to be able to get body armor. Maybe they'll fix that part in the future, but you might want that stuff. Or you might be in certain security professions that are excluded from this bill. You might want the ability to protect yourself. This does nothing to keep us safer. Absolutely nothing. It just turns New Yorkers who are trying to be able to buy equipment that protects you if you are struck by a bullet, it turns you into a criminal. That's all it does. And I can't see any moral justification for that. Again, I don't agree with, but I can at least get on an intellectual level the gun control stuff. It's bad, but I get it. This doesn't do that. This is just pure ignorance parading as doing something about the gun problem, because the one of the shooters, had the guy in Texas had body armor on. That's why the cops couldn't. It is not why police officers couldn't take him down. It has nothing to do with it. It's just pure ignorance masquerading as political virtue signaling. And this one kind of infuriates me. I do not like this bill. I went on about this on my Thursday show. Again, Tim and I sometimes will do a kind of bonus show on Thursdays now, online only, and we'll put it out as a podcast as well. And we end up talking about this one for a while. But that bill, if you're interested in seeing that, and it ended up passing with, I think, some Republican support too, as well. And that's Senate Bill 9407B. Again, makes it illegal for you to be able to buy a protective vest unless you are in certain professions. Turns you into, it's a misdemeanor for the first one and a Class C felony for any other for both selling and possessing a vest. So yeah, that is what I can't get this one. I don't get it. I don't know why anyone would support that. And anyone who to me, anyone who supported this on either side of the aisle, like, deserves our scorn, Democrat or Republican. So I don't have high hopes for Republicans on gun control stuff. Sorry, just that the history of the party isn't always there either. So one of the, again, I'll make sure I mention a positive now. Every once in a while, I say some positive stuff goes on, right? And we should talk about that too, and we should reinforce that stuff. There are people who do try to do good work to make things less terrible, marginally, slightly undo the problems that the state created. My goal is, my hope is that talking about this stuff and supporting politicians who do support this stuff will lead to more of it. I don't know, that's probably a little too optimistic, but that's my hope. Let me hold on to this naive hope of mine. But there's another bill that's interesting, is that the Senate passed this bill to remove some barriers to rural broadband deployment, which is that there used to be this requirement for certain types of broadband deployment contracts for the state to resurvey existing utility poles, and apparently this is something that was costing like a lot of money, several $1,000s a month for all this stuff. And again, this is a small thing, but one would hope that reasonable folks in the bureaucracy of our government, at the executive level, at the Senate level, at the assembly level, at every level of government, can look at stuff and say, why are we doing this unnecessary duplicative process when we could just share information more effectively and no longer have this costly thing to make an important service more expensive, folks? Because inherently building broadband in rural communities is expensive, right? It's much more expensive than it is building in a place like Rochester, where in theory that investment is going to pay off much more quickly, because you're going to be able to build that for a certain length, a certain area, and you'll have more customers in that area to do that. Whereas in rural communities, you're going to have to build a lot more miles, a lot more feet of cable in order to get the same number of customers, right? Because folks spread out. You can apply that to any sort of infrastructure. So finding ways to reduce that cost, great. Because if you live in a rural community, it'd be great to be able to get that stuff. It's prohibitively expensive inherently, just because of the nature of what needs to actually get built. And so removing those things would be great. I'd love to see that in other places too. Again, this is more something I'm sure someone like Larry could speak to on Tuesday's show, but like, why does it cost so much to build like public transit in the city? Why is the per mile cost of the MTA, which we as the state, even though we're not directly benefiting from it, why is the per mile cost for that so much higher than other places, other dense cities? It's not just because New York City is dense and heavily populated and there's complicated property issues. It's not just that, because places like Paris managed to build it at a fraction of the cost per mile of new public track that we do. So looking at that stuff, I'm looking to say, well, why the heck in New York State is it so expensive? And in other states with heavy regulatory burdens, with a lot of conflict with unions and contracts, expensive hiring practices, why is it not inherently more expensive? Why is it more expensive here than it is in so many other places? And hopefully that conversation that can trigger, like, it doesn't have to be this way. There's nothing fixed about how unusually expensive it is to do things here in New York, and that we can have bills like this that seem to at least remove that one barrier to an expensive process and make things a little bit easier. That's my hope. Reasonable folks out there, at least for just the sake of saving money, can do a little bit of that and not just give in to the status quo or the corruption of giving contracts to folks that are more expensive. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Be back tomorrow with Larry Sharp, and I'll be back on Wednesday. Talk to you then.